I've seen this happen before, and so have you. I have not seen any type of investigation that led to anybody being prosecuted for anything, whether you go back to Lois Lerner or you go to President Trump's taxes being exposed. So we're outraged by it. And so the question is, so what are you going to do about it? And the answer is probably nothing. And I think that's where the American people sit back and say, if you tell me there's not a double standard, you're going to have to come up from a completely different angle, because this just doesn't fly. One other thing I just want to cover with you, and this is incredible. We have expanded our money supply by 180% since January of 2021. And now we're talking about trillions more in additional spending. I would think that if anybody were to look at our M1 or our money supply and would see how this has accelerated since January and today, they would swear that there's somebody out there counterfeiting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and filling our economy with money that's no longer worth anything. I would submit to you that inflation right now is being caused by the fact that what we are printing is no longer worth what the perception of it should be. And that is one heck of a thing to be facing, especially when we're the reserve currency of the world. We are putting ourselves in a very dangerous position of people saying, oh, yeah, right, I have complete faith and trust in that system. So I would like it, and if somehow somebody, and Mr. Chairman, I would like to submit this piece from tradingeconomics.com showing the money supply, M1 supply, and the incredible amount of new money that's entering our economy every single day. At some point, we got to sit back and look at that. I can't believe that the prices. I'm a car dealer. Nobody could tell me that, hey, you know what, Kelly? If you hold on to that used car long enough, it'll be worth more, not less. That just defies any type of economic basics that we have in the form of retailing business or just business in general. So, Mr. Secretary, I appreciate you being here today. Mr. Chairman, thank you so much, and I hope we continue. And we should have a really deep investigation with TIGTA on what took place with the revealing of these tax returns. So I thank you, and I yield back.
Budget projections on inflation, originally you projected it would be well below 2%, but we've passed that figure with still 7 months to go. And in fact, just recently CPI came out and had the rate pegged at 6.6% annual rate so far this year. So, Madam Secretary, what specifically did we get wrong here to be this far off on an inflation target in just a matter of a few months? Why did it happen?
Well, let me first say that the administration's budget, which was produced in February, projected inflation during 2021 at 2.1%. Clearly, in recent months, inflation has been higher than that. It's important to remember that this follows a period in which prices really collapsed after the pandemic shut down large portions of the U.S. economy. Prices in leisure and hospitality and for airfares plummeted, and part of the high inflation we've seen in recent months reflects.
I appreciate that, Madam Secretary, and I hate to interrupt, but we only have 3 minutes here. The fact of the matter is that prices for everything are well above where they were before the start of the pandemic. But let me turn to a different subject. We have 26 states that have either ended or in the process of ending the $300 a month federal unemployment benefits program. We have roughly 9 million jobs that are open. We have 9 million people looking for work. There's not one business in this country that is not short of employees. And I hope that the administration is aware of this when you get out to real America in every single state. So are you willing to stand here today and say that it's time to end for the other 24 states that are still using this $300 surplus addition to the weekly unemployment benefit, should this come to an end for the other 24 states that haven't ended it?
Well, it's coming to an end in September under the existing law, and states are in different situations. There are some states with extremely high unemployment that are likely to want to continue providing this aid to people who are out of work. So states should have the flexibility to do what's appropriate for their circumstances. But in any event, the supplement will end in September.
Deficits and debt. Do they matter? When I got here in Congress, we're $8 trillion in debt. Today, we're closing in on $30 trillion. You could make the argument a few more years, 30, 35 trillion. I think it's immoral what we're doing. I think at some point, common sense tells you it's going to implode. I know when I first got here, they had a concept, which I agreed with, pay-go, which you pay as you go. I know we mentioned that this is going to be paid for over 15 years, another couple, 3-4 trillion. I don't buy it because I've been here long enough to know that usually never happens, and we just keep running these massive deficits. A lot of us have kids and grandkids, and I think what we're doing to that next generation, next couple of generations, is absolutely, positively not right. I'd like to get your comments on deficits and debt. Like I said, 8 trillion to almost 30 trillion, 20 trillion up in a matter of about 13, 14 years. Madam Secretary, what's your thoughts?
So deficits and debt do matter. We need to have a responsible and sustainable fiscal policy, and as Treasury Secretary, that certainly has to be top of mind for me, and it is. But there's some of the metrics that we've historically used to judge the magnitude of debt, what's safe and what's sustainable. Conditions in our economy have changed a lot, and we need to take that into account too in judging what a responsible fiscal policy is. Importantly, interest rates have been trending down for several decades. Not just because the economy is weak right
Madam
now.
Secretary, we only have 3 minutes, so let me jump into my second question or comment.
Well, can I just say that the real interest burden on the debt is a very important measure of the cost to society of running deficits.
I reclaim my time.
And that's negative.
Yeah.
Sure.
Let me just say, I don't buy a lot of that. I just see the reality, common sense. The other thing I wanted to mention, the president's proposal of looking, there's a lot of talk about corporations and capital gains, but I want to zero in on small business. As a guy that was chairman of Florida Chamber, I can tell you they're looking at, if I'm wrong on this, let me know. On small business, the tax rate's going to go, most of them are pass-through entities, as you know, 39%, 39.6, plus ACA is another 3.8%, so 43. And many states have a 10 or 15 or 8% tax. It's going to be 50% or more on a lot of small businesses that are the job creators in the country. Is that your proposal? Is that the president's proposal? Is to have tax rates, including the state's portion, over 50%?
Well, the president has proposed raising the top rate back to 39.6%. But the higher rates on capital gains and dividends that would bring them up to levels you mentioned.
But on small business, it only
applies to individuals earning over $1 million a year.
No, there's a lot of companies that are, I'm telling you, a lot of businesses in every state, 39.6 plus 3.8 plus 7 or 8%, you're 50 and 50% and above in terms of impacting small business, which impacts jobs. Thank you. I yield back.
With the American people, and the concept of modern monetary policy, modern monetary theory has become, in my opinion, the de facto policy of America. And I am very troubled by that position we find ourselves in with $30 trillion worth of essential debt. I see the president's budget spending $7.2 trillion and adding, they're worried about the tax cut bill adding $2 trillion to the deficit, but your own budget adds $14.5 trillion to the national debt. And so my question to you, and it follows up on the commentary you made to Bloomberg that was reported, that Yellen took issue with those promoting modern monetary theory who suggest you don't have to worry about interest rate payments because the central bank can buy the debt. She said at an Asian investors conference hosted by Credit Suisse in Hong Kong That's a very wrong-minded theory because that's how you get hyperinflation. So my direct question to you is yes or no, do you oppose modern monetary theory?
I do not support modern monetary theory, and I would stick by what I said previously. On the other hand, it is the case that interest rates have been very low. That's not just a recent phenomenon, it's something that's occurred over decades. And that does matter to what is a sustainable level of debt and what is a responsible fiscal policy. And that's the point that I've tried to emphasize today.
Madam Secretary, if I could, and I only have a minute left here. And now, because you share a concern on MMT like I do, and we're concerned about inflation as we see these numbers coming down, and you recognize that hyperinflation is the scenario upon which MMT can result in, are we not in a position as a country of facing hyperinflation as a risk to our stability and position as the world leader from an economic perspective? And what are we doing about inflation to make sure it doesn't become hyperinflation under MMT policies?
So I don't believe that we're at risk of hyperinflation. We've had several months of high inflation that most economists, including me, believe will be transitory as our economy gets back in full swing after the pandemic and prices recover from the very low levels.
So then, Madam Secretary, why do we have to add $14 trillion to the national debt under President Biden's own budget proposal?
We're proposing critical investments in our economy, in our people, in R&D, in education, in public infrastructure that will make our economy more productive and address long-term structural challenges, make us more resilient to climate change, and lead to higher labor force participation. These are long-run policies intended to improve the functioning of our economy and address inequities that have existed for too long.
Speaker Pelosi and Washington Democrats repeat over and over that a budget is a statement of one's values. Reading through President Biden's budget, it's very clear that his administration values making Americans dependent on government and giving Washington greater command and control over our daily lives. The president's budget adds $17 trillion to our national debt, skyrocketing it to unsustainable levels. A sentiment you've shared as recently as February 2020, Secretary. It fails to support small businesses and promises to raise taxes on low-income, hard-working Americans. But the devil's in the details. Once we get past the astounding level of spending and taxes, we see that this budget weaponizes the IRS to target Americans. The additional $80 billion in IRS funding will add 87,000 new IRS agents, more than doubling the size of the agency. I can't even imagine the egregious violations of Americans' privacy that will undoubtedly occur. I wouldn't be surprised if it is something similar to the appalling actions that took place at the IRS under President Obama. In case anyone has forgotten, during the Obama administration, Lois Lerner used her role as the director of the exempt organizations unit to target and discriminate against conservative groups based on inappropriate criteria, including their names and principles. When Congress started asking questions, she covered it up, destroying 422 backup tapes containing over 24,000 emails. Lerner faced zero repercussions and was rewarded with a generous government pension. Undoubtedly inspired by the lack of consequences for Ms. Lerner's actions, last week we learned an IRS employee leaked the tax returns of Americans in an effort to build support for President Biden's political agenda. Think about that. For the second straight Democrat administration, we had an IRS employee or employees weaponize personal tax information for political persons. Given the IRS's past willingness to target conservatives, this should scare everyone who opposes the president's agenda straight to their core. And so, Madam Secretary, has anyone been held accountable for this breach?
I'm sorry, we did not find that an IRS employee is responsible for this information becoming public. We don't know what happened, and we are investigating. We have referred this matter. It is an extremely serious matter, and we have referred it to independent investigative authorities to figure out what did happen. But we have to be very careful not to jump to conclusions.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And guys, I come back with that video just to make you think. And as you have listened to Janet Yellen, everyone clearly knows all this debt printing is not going to end well. And then plus we're seeing billions sent to the IRS. Now, is these billions and billions of dollars being sent to the IRS for the current economy? No, guys. We know this is for the fourth industrial revolution because everything is going to be tokenized. They have to switch up what they're doing right now. Plus, when we look at the Fed, we see all this money printing, but the Fed has the secret weapon, which is Bitcoin, cryptos, which is going to cause deflation. But remember, when it comes to the New World Order, everything is planned out. So they have to create the problem, wait for the reaction, then run in with the solution. But there's a lot of pain the Americans are going to feel during that reactional period. And we understand that. Get your friends and family educated. Yes, finances is boring. Turn your televisions off, guys, because if you don't, you're definitely going to regret it. Just remember the Crypto Teacher told you. Have a wonderful day.
We're going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
This effort. And China has big plans for this. They intend to seed their digital yuan into the global environment by giving it away to visitors at next winter's Olympics. When they arrive at the airport, they're going to get yuan digital wallets. They're going to receive digital yuan. They're going to use it throughout their visits to Beijing, and then they're going to take it back to their home countries. They see this as a huge advantage. Why? Because who controls the underlying protocols, who controls the underlying standards of the future of money will control the future of money.